So, on our agenda tonight, we have additions or deletions to the agenda. Anybody got any additions or deletions?
Under old business, transportation.
Ooh. Good catch. Transportation,
Transportation under old business.
because there was that email floating around. Under executive session, I have to add a parent complaint. Complaints, parent concern. Concern or complaint, Bill?
I think concern is appropriate.
I can't believe you even had to ask Bill that question.
I just got a wicked headache.
Rick's getting to know me way too well.
Oh, no, Rick and I had a few minutes before the meeting, so we were talking about the budget, so I got a wicked headache.
Yeah. Just looking at it.
Instant headache.
Okay, so if there's nothing else on members of the public, we've got a staff member and we've got administration. We've got a reporter and we have a cameraman. You guys got anything? Cool. Review and approve the minutes of the November 18th, 2019 meeting.
It is in your packet.
Somebody want to, okay, so Rick moved it. Do I have a second?
Second.
And we have a second from Mark. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Sounds unanimous, so the minutes pass. Financial budget, third look. Wild bill.
So in front of you, you should have a budget and a note sheet that talks about any edits that were made from 2 to 3. So this sheet under the budget notes has every single line item that was changed based on the conversation you guys had at your last meeting.
Okay, so do I have a motion to adopt the budget to be presented to the voters in February?
Look at all those hands.
Come on, guys. Anyways, so Bill's here to answer any questions you have about the budget. So we haven't had it for a while. We have had a chance to review it, or everybody should have had a chance to review it. Does anybody have any questions of Bill? Anybody have any questions for administrators? Hiding in the back corner trying to not be noticed. Oh, come on, guys.
It's the best we can do, right? Be no our administrators, I guess.
I don't know, we asked them last meeting and they kept cutting stuff.
Line 147 was something that you guys did not decide on at the last meeting. It's on page 3. Actually 148. My bad. 148. Yeah. 148. There's $15,000 in there.
Is that the one for the steam person here?
No, this is for the
Oh, the-
machine upstairs.
The RV.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, Mark, way to show off.
Those letters.
Okay,
Bill, I did have one question for you.
Yes.
If I'm reading this kind of summary page,
Yes.
top right, we're 1.7% below our first draft.
Yes, 97,316 was reduced after your last conversation.
They're
And-
like high-fiving each other back there because they cut 1.7% out of the budget.
Well,
Pretty good.
the board asked to have 50,000 removed,
They did.
uh, having that be a transfer from capital, not to be in the operations budget. And then the additional 47,000 was a lot of the work you're seeing in your line item there that your administrators did do. Very fine job. Now, again, this is your expense budget, this is your operations budget.
Right.
This has
We don't know
nothing to-
how it affects tax rate. But we do know that the commissioner of taxes is looking, is predicting a 5.5%, 5.5 cent increase
Correct,
in the tax rate for the homestead.
yes.
And about 1% increase if you pay by,
Non-homestead.
right, I forget what that number was. I think it was one,
I wanna say 1.08 maybe?
that seems high. Cause it's only like 2% or 3%.
It might have been 8.18. Like 2.35 to 2.53, something like that.
So basically, again, the state throws it back on the districts. If districts can restrain budget growth to less than 1.4%, average rates could stay the same as last year. Well, then why don't you prevent insurance from increasing so much, then we may be able to do that.
Do we know yet what's left in the reserves?
That is still being collected.
Okay.
And verified.
Oh, I did have a question,
Mhm.
Because it's line 16, these 10 students, the pre-K students, I think, or,
Yep.
are those new students coming into the district, or 10 leaving our programs to go to other programs?
Yes, so when you pay tuition to private providers, we're budgeting, we're estimating 10 students that will not participate in either of the River Valley's pre-K programs in-house.
Are we expecting to lose those students,
Um,
or This
We're
is
not
overall.
expecting the 3-year-olds to not come back for 4-year-olds, we're talking about new
New
3 and 4-year-olds.
okay,
So that could change until they actually register.
decide?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what do y'all wanna do with the budget, man?
We're not looking at making any changes at this point, right?
I don't know.
Line 148 is a question.
Whether we want to keep that 15,000.
Whether you want to keep it in an operational budget, whether you don't want to fund it, or whether you want to do it through capital.
Well, I think the whole question too is what do we wanna do with the whole budget? Are we happy with the budget? Do we wanna send it back to the administration to cut another, 10%, 20%? Do we see something that we think should be added back into it that is removed? Really, there's nothing been removed from the budget, other than some time for the librarian and the capital stuff. Do we wanna instruct the superintendent to, give us a budget with, 2 less employees? Nope. No, I'm just asking, I'm throwing things out there,
Mhm.
or we can make a motion to approve the budget as presented.
I think regarding that 15,000, I think it'd be better off going to capital since for consistency.
It really is a capital expense, I mean, it's a
Yeah.
long term, it's not something just for 1 year.
Shouldn't have to
Rick
replace
says
it
that
for
the
20.
heating system here has kind of been
It's
a,
always been.
and so if we can fix one pane, even though it's no longer Tammy's pane, it's now Chris's pane.
Is it really Chris's pen?
Yeah, because she shouldn't have to worry about it.
all
That's
on
what we
his
have a facilities manager for, so that the administration didn't have to deal with things like water and sewer. They didn't have to get poopies on it. I'm just trying to get somebody to say something.
Not fighting,
Alright,
Huh?
so,
not fighting.
Bill, why don't you tell us about the line you would like to tell us about?
So it's line 148.
Non-technology.
You have 44.5 in there now. And that includes $15,000 for the ERV replacement, HV, AC maintenance, painting, windows, and general repair maintenance. So the painting, the windows, general repair, and HVA feel like building. You could make an argument, I guess, about the
So
windows.
painting is usually not a capital, I mean, the federal government usually doesn't allow you to include painting and minor repairs. But things like replacing windows, I mean, that's a major. And the HVAC, to me, should be a capital. And also with Efficiency Vermont, if it's, new windows are gonna save money and they're more efficient, there may be some money, through Efficiency Vermont. So I would rather that go through the capital, so we spend, an actual versus having to put a big number in there. Building painting to me is something that, should be done and can be done continually. And, I just as soon see that stay as a line item.
Is the HVAC repairs or HVAC
It's just ongoing maintenance.
ongoing
No, I
maintenance?
thought it was,
That's the
hang
ERV.
on, let's,
Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
The system is aging, and it is to the point where the parts that, might need to be replaced are no longer being made. So it was recommended when, we had some other work being looked at, that system probably be replaced, because it really is, it's at the end of its life.
Was that the ERV or the
Yes.
HVAC? Okay.
Yes.
Which is part of the HVAC system.
Right.
I'd love to have it come up and be really clever and come up with a whole bunch of other initials we could throw out there to really confuse everybody, but I just can't do it this quickly. So we're at, Laura, to bring you up to speed. If you go back there, if you can maybe rewind it for you and see what's happening. But we've been presented the budget.
Yep.
The staff, the administration, was able to bring us how much of a, how many, that 50,000, right?
1.7%.
1.7% reductions roughly. So this is the budget we're looking at. There's still the concern about the HVAC and the windows, whether that becomes, or the EVAC, or the, whatever.
The ERV.
Irv, whatever Irv wants. I threw out, send it back to the administrator to cut it 20%. I asked if somebody wanted to make a motion to approve it, to adopt it. And, we're just kinda having some banter about the budget.
Yeah, can I ask one question?
Oh, you can ask a lot because
So-
nobody else.
Looking at this front sheet, what it looks like are, looks like there are 4 columns, maybe 5. We've got FY20, FY21. So now my question is, the first draft and reduction way up at the top, does that jive with the 2 columns below that say
Yes.
variance and first draft? No?
Yeah.
Or yes?
No, yes.
So you see that 363 at the bottom and the 460 at the bottom.
Yeah.
The difference between those two is that 97, 316.
Oh, I see, wait a minute, the first, so this is weird, so the first
minus
draft,
this equals this.
so that's the first draft, and this is the first draft column?
Correct.
Oh, okay. Wait,
Sorry, I didn't mean to mark the paper. I never clean that every day.
Yeah, I'll give you my cleaner.
You sure?
So the building repairs and maintenance, I mean, that's still something that we could reduce even more, but it's gonna have to be done somewhere at some point. So if we take it out of operational, then when we get to the capital budget.
You'll
you
need
know.
65
Right.
instead of that. Right.
Unless we want to do the windows also.
No. If we do the windows and the heat stuff, I mean, that should all go over the capital side. So it should be reduced out of this, but we gotta fund the capital somehow. So we can fund the capital with money that's in the reserves now.
Right, we have 50,000 currently that we moved into the capital. For,
Well,
Not
no, we
moving.
haven't really.
we haven't moved yet, but.
Right, and that's up to the voters to tell us. So what they wanna do is they want them from operational, put 50 over. We've always done it as a special article. I don't know how they've done it in Wardsboro in the past, but we've never said, okay, in operational, we have 50,000, we're moving over. You vote the operational budget, and then you vote for funding of your capital budget. And then you vote expenses of your capital budget, or vice versa, you can vote the expenses first.
When you said 65, I assumed you were making the 50,000 plus 15 for the ERV.
Correct.
So if we want to add the windows to that, that's another 10,000,
That would be 75.
which would make it 75,000.
Right, but we don't have to fund the capital at 50 either. Because the capital's
It's a matter
gonna,
of taking
the
it out of the
capital's
budget.
gonna all of a sudden burst into life with an amount of money in it.
Out of-
No, out of the reserves.
Right.
That's why that's what the reserves were from,
It's not kidding,
reserve.
although it
Some
sounds
of it
like
was from
is.
capital reserve, so we're gonna establish a reserve account number, and that's what's gonna start, so we don't have to fund that 50 maybe this year. We don't know what the capitals look like, because we don't know what the reserves are, because we don't know what the audit's gonna tell us that we have left over. So that's why this is, just concentrate, what we need to concentrate on today is the operational budget. That's the first hurdle we gotta get over. Don't worry about the reserve budget for now, that's gonna be a whole nother hurdle.
Well, the question is whether we take the windows and the ERV out of this budget.
No, I think we do, I mean,
I mean, I think, I'm certainly concerned, if we're not funding for the capital, reserve funds, we're basically not gaining any
no,
income.
I'm not,
I
hang on.
understand that, but if we take it out of here, then we just have what's in the fund, and then we can spend it with.
No, see, listen carefully. Okay, we wanna present an operational budget that it costs to operate the district, okay? Whatever money we wanna fund from the reserve, we'll do that as a separate discussion. It shouldn't, the amount should not be in the operational budget. We shouldn't say, in the operational budget, we're putting 50,000 so we can move it to the reserve. So, we will vote a number of the operational budget, capital expenditures in that budget, okay? Building maintenance needs to be in the budget, so whatever is we consider to be maintenance. If you consider the windows to be maintenance, then we should leave that in there.
Yeah,
Technically, I think we should really consider windows and major stuff to
Anything
be,
that has a lifespan.
right.
Yeah.
Painting painting is maintenance, painting is not,
Painting's
in-
like window cleaning.
right.
so how is the capital reserve fund funded?
We will have a separate discussion about that at the meeting and say, now, here is your reserve, and we would like
Not the
to,
expenses, how is it funded, how is it?
we have a separate discussion,
Okay.
and we say, we want you to vote to put $50,000 into the reserve fund this year
Okay.
that we need to raise from taxes.
I see, and then that would be added on top of the capital.
Right, so then you would
Okay.
have your operational, and you add those two numbers, and that's a total tax burden on the
Okay.
town.
I gotcha.
However, remember,
So-
we had reserves, both schools. We don't know what those numbers are, so we are gonna have a building reserve fund. It's gonna have a amount of money in it. I don't know how much money that's gonna be. But we have to establish that, and then we have to look at how much this year we're gonna spend out of that budget, which Bill is projecting around, 15,000, and how much were the windows?
10.
25,000. So maybe we start a reserve fund with 100,000. We're gonna ask for them to allow us to expend 25, which will come from the reserve, so it doesn't affect your taxes, what you have to raise. But then we wanna put some money into the reserve fund, so we may say that, you know, for the next couple of years, we're recommending we put 15,000 in the reserve every year. And then that way, but we have to, we can't just throw a number out, we need to have a plan, we need to, you know, like that you were working on that.
Yeah.
So here is, you know, going down, next year, this year we're gonna spend 25, next year we're gonna spend 65, and the year after we spend 200. Are we gonna have enough money, the way we're funding it, with what we start with? And we don't know what we can start with because we don't know what our surpluses are until the audits are done.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying, let's make life really easy and concentrate on the operational budget for now. And then we'll move forward and look at the reserve budgets, cause, you know, do we have to look at transportation? Do we need a bus? You know, Dover thinks they want another tractor, at the Dover building. Do we wanna have, you know, what other things are out there? Do we have enough technology? Do we need to buy, you know, new whiteboards or smart boards or whatever those things are?
Smart boards.
Smart boards.
Whiteboards are cheap.
Whiteboards are very cheap. So they probably wouldn't
They
be,
wouldn't be capital.
no, they would probably be equipment.
Probably not.
So anyways, that's how we do it. So it makes it a lot easier if we concentrate on operational, then we'll concentrate on the capital once we get operational set. Yes,
Can I ask Bill a question?
you can ask me one.
Okay. Hopefully if this has already been gone over, hopefully this answer will be extremely brief and I'll follow up elsewhere.
Okay.
Is there any public funding for, I shouldn't say that. Is there any efficiency funding for, the windows, or, did you just ask that?
No, I just said there may be efficiency money for improvements
Have
to
we
save
looked?
energy.
Have you looked
I
to see
cannot
if there?
confirm that there is efficiency money available for.
But again, if it
Okay,
comes out of the
can I-
reserve, well,
Yeah.
I can explain it to you. If we're gonna project that money out of the reserve,
Yeah.
and we can get grant money, we're not gonna budget for the grant money, or we're not gonna budget for any money that comes in. That would be income that would return to the reserve, so we wouldn't have taken as much out of the reserve
Yeah,
to do the expenditure.
that's great.
So it doesn't matter right now for us if there is any money, we can say we will look into it.
Okay, but it does actually matter to me.
Okay.
I think that I would really like to know the answer as to whether or not there's money from Efficiency Vermont or the utilities, or any of the agencies, weatherization agencies. I'm, asking really just a direct question. of
I
them.
don't know, but I can find out.
Yep, that'd be great. Thank you.
But, and the other thing
That's
though is,
just a
it
policy.
depends, right, it depends when you do the work too, because every year the efficiency stuff changes.
Well, that's
Wow,
exciting.
The generator.
That's efficient.
So,
Made some cuts, sorry.
No lights after 6:30.
battery storage would be another one.
No, so I mean, that stuff would just, and that's why I think it's better having those kind of expenses in the reserve budget too, because it's easier to move the money around.
Well, there's a very large push around efficiency and emissions reduction and, of course, our school buildings potentially have a lot of those,
It's
so
now
we
Belgian
wouldn't,
Diesel fuel.
we really wouldn't want to see them incurring additional costs as we are starting to try and tamp down. We wouldn't want to see indirect cost, property tax increases because of that. So that would be really important to know.
Those are available.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah, no questions in the budget.
No. On the budget, yes. Okay.
Keep going.
In terms of and again, I apologize if any of these
Nope, that
questions have
one
been
wasn't.
answered. Okay, so FTEs, 23.25 is the total for both schools, buildings in our single district in FY '21. Is that correct?
23.25.
23.25. Okay, so what was the number in 20 of FTEs? Is that number unchanged? Is it changed?
It would be less
the 23.25 is less?
It would be less.
Well, we have to clarify because we budgeted for less, but we have more than we budgeted for because we wound up with some additional staff.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I
I would
movement.
be, I would
I
ask
would
about
have
the
to,
budgeting
I would have
question.
to, I could not give you a, absolute specific answer on that.
Okay, I think that would be a good answer to have
Okay.
at town meeting.
So go over it real quick for me again, for us again. We had budgeted some people through the school, but it was decided that they would go through the SU.
So you purchase some services through the agency fund at the supervisory union. And so if a administrator asks for a reduction in a service that is purchased, then you guys will be purchasing less service. But it is not an employee of River Valleys.
But last year, we put in the budget for some positions
Okay.
that were, there were some positions that we are now employing that we hadn't planned on employing when we created last year's budget. I don't remember if it was on the special side or what's one side or the other, but I remember we either put it in our budget or it was in the SU budget and it was decided that it should be the opposite way. I believe it was in our budget, but it was decided to go to the SU.
I would have to check on that.
Wasn't there, don't. So I mean, the numbers we approved for FTE last year are not the same numbers that we have in this year's budget, or that we're paying for this year.
I couldn't answer that question with any certainty.
No, because things move around between the SU and here, correct? What's employed in the
Yeah,
building.
we went over it when we were going through the budget last time. There was one. It doesn't matter, but anyways, okay.
I mean, in general, to your question of year-over-year FTEs,
Budgeted.
I would
I
say
would say
that
budgeted.
I can get you that answer, but I
Great.
can give you a general answer now, but I can't give you a
So
specific answer.
let's be specific.
Okay.
What did we budget for last year and what do we currently have?
Okay. In FTE.
Right. And then you're budgeting for 23.25 for this coming year.
Got it.
Okay.
So in the benefits, the health benefit increase,
Yes.
12.9% rate increase. But I think if I did my math right, which is entirely possible that I did not,
Okay.
that we have a higher percentage increase of cost, right? So just a lot of change in circumstance there.
Well, so that is the full cost of healthcare benefits. So that incorporates not only an increase, average of 12.9%, but each individual plan ranges from 11.7 to 14.3. And each individual employee during open enrollment period gets the opportunity to change.
How
And
many?
so all of that is factored into that 55,876 variance.
Okay.
And of course, again, that's a budgeting number because if somebody returns, like if we have somebody in a family plan and they leave and we hire a single plan, or if we had a single person that leaves and we hire somebody with a family plan, I mean, again, it's a best guess a year and a half down the road.
I think my last question is, how firm is the pre-K and secondary tuition increase on a scale of 1 to 10?
The increase in terms of percentages is historically within the band that we have seen over the past 3 or 4 years. The number of students is, we're guessing, a year and a half out.
Okay, great.
And also, no, it's, what is it, it's January 15th or something?
January
That's
15th is when we get
The actual,
Actual
the
cost.
required to actually let us know or tell us.
And we've removed the transfer to the capital fund.
Yes. We'll vote that separately.
We removed in this budget, that $50,000 has been removed, and a discussion is amongst the group right now of line 148, a possible reduction in the operational budget of $25,000.
Okay.
Which, as you would see, goes from 18,000 if that 25 is removed to a 19.5, so it would be historically
Okay.
within the normal range.
Oh, I see, okay. Year
the
over,
44
year over year.
Right.
Okay.
So
What's the balance in our capital?
we don't know,
I don't know.
because the audits haven't been done yet.
I just would hate to see us be thinking short term on.
No, I'm not saying we're not, yeah.
I'm confident you have $75,000.
Right. My feeling is that if we put a $50,000 transfer in the operational, we're putting an increase into the operational fund that we really don't need to, because it's never been that way before. We've never put money in operational, take out and give to capital, unless Wardsboro has.
Yeah.
So Wardsboro hasn't done it either, so it should not be in there. I mean, that needs to not be there. I think the capital expenses need not be in the budget
You're
either.
talking about next, yeah.
I'm just talking
Budgeting.
forever
You're
and
talking
ever.
about budgeting.
Just
Let's
a fund
give
transfer.
it, we've always been honest with our voters, and we've always, here's the operational budget. This is what it costs to operate the school. This is what it costs for improvements on the school. That's out of the capital reserve fund. And then this is how we have to fund the capital reserve fund, but remember, we're trying to kind of keep, peaks and valleys, so we're,
Right.
that's why.
what I'm worried about.
Yeah.
Is like that we, make a short-term decision and a long-term mistake.
Right, and again, until we really know what we're gonna put in how much we have and what's gonna go in each of those funds, I mean, we may find out that the administrations did really good in the final years of Dover and Wardsboro, and there's $600,000 of cash floating out there, and we can put 300 in the building reserve and 100 in the bus reserve and 200 in a general reserve to, help balance things out.
That money has already been collected from people.
Right,
It's already
it's
sitting
it's
there.
our money,
There's
it's
no
sitting
reason
there.
to raise it again.
Right.
Just because we're a little nervous about what.
And until we told people it's gonna take us a year or two to
Yeah.
kind of get first the budgets together, which I give everybody, thank you for taking $100,000 out of the budget. That's a big chunk of change. That doesn't happen very often.
Even though 50 was easy. Really.
And then we gotta get that reserve, we gotta get the reserves reestablished, so we know what they are. I mean, at one point, there was $200,000 or $300,000 floating around there, but we haven't evened up from last year. So that's what I'm saying too, let's concentrate on operational, then it's easier to compare, because last year there was no reserve, there was no capital voted in anywhere. And so let's compare
And there's no
an
buy down
operational.
in here, so it is really a true, this
Yeah.
is what
Right.
it costs
That's what we wanted
to
to pay.
operate the schools.
Right.
So.
And the buy down comes with the tax rate, not with the
Budget.
not with the budget. It does, a buy down doesn't affect the bottom
I
line of
was
the
more
budget.
thinking of her up
Yeah.
and down with the tax rate peaks and valleys.
Right. So and then the other thing too, we're gonna fight a little bit, don't forget folks, is that every year for the next few years, we still have that 6 cent, then 4 cent and 2 cent. We're gonna have to account for. So last year we got 8 cents off the tax rate. This year we're only getting 6. So just if everything else was exactly the same, we're 2 cents off. Just because we're not getting the buy down from the rate from combining the schools. You're looking at me like it.
I'm containing myself
Right.
because I wanna go home early.
No, but I mean, you're right. You're gonna decide
You're not
on
going home
an
early.
operational budget, and then you're gonna go through the tax rate and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's what I'm thinking, if everything, operational should just be operational. So I'm gonna, since nobody said anything, I'm going to tell the administrator, take the windows and the HVAC right out of that operational line item. So the only thing in there is things like painting and minor repairs. And what are those repairs? Is there any like structural things? Is it,
So I have the list.
yep,
Yeah.
Ceiling paint, interior paint, the windows, which you're taking out. A drinking fountain is listed for $1,000. I don't know if that would be considered.
that should go to capital, because that's not something you buy
It's got
every
life.
year. Right.
Okay, window quilts, which would be.
That's almost like decoration.
No, it's to keep.
That's
low.
weather-
No, I know, but,
Yeah.
so move that out to capital too then, because they're not something you replace every year, right? They got a 5, 10, 15-year life expectancy, 20?
More than 20.
Okay, so yeah, that should be a capital.
Okay, and then there's also general building improvements and repairs for $8,500, which should stay. ERV,
So is that like if a carpet gets a tear, you have, I mean, that we really can't plan on, so that I think that's,
That, if that happens every year,
appropriate,
then
right?
that happens,
Yeah.
yeah, that should stand.
the ERV, 15,000, exterior paint in this building, classroom expansion, that's off the table, interior painting, 3,000, repair glass window, it's like a maintenance.
that should be
There's
maintenance, yes.
one window that's cracked in the classroom here.
But hang on a second, would it make more sense to replace it or to repair it? Is it a thermal
It's just-
window?
It's a crack in one of these windows.
Yeah, but is it a thermal window?
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes it's cheaper to just replace the window than it is to get the glass fixed.
Really?
Yeah, no, I replaced the whole door at the house. because
Right.
one
Okay.
Window broke. It was cheaper. to buy the
Well,
door.
you know what, it's one window, so yeah, leave it in there for now, and we'll figure it out.
That's it.
So
Okay.
Tammy, I've got 15,000 for the ERV,
Yep.
10,000 for windows,
Yep.
1,000 for a water faucet. What do you have for quilts?
The quilts are 3,000.
3,000.
So 29,000.
Are those replacing quilts, or are they, that's in the Dover building?
But they're a long-term thing, it's not like something you replace every couple of years.
They've been
And they're
there a
not
long time,
replacing
right?
it because,
I think they might be original.
because they're not replacing it because they want a different color.
Do we know what the life is for those?
He thinks they're original to the
I think
building.
they might be.
No, what the best, like, you know, like when you're using them, like, best practice life
We could
is.
maybe see if Chris has some data on that.
It's gotta be over, it's gotta be 10 or 15 years.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with that being
Yeah.
capital, is it? Are you?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a
Yeah, move the
curiosity
window
question.
quilts out.
Did you have those put in when the building was built? You were good.
You just called you a dinosaur.
I know. And I'm on camera. Can you turn the camera the other way for a minute? I'd like to communicate with you. He's not moving the camera that way. I have something for you later.
All right, so I've got a $29,000 reduction in line 148.
Okay, so, and that's 29 off the bottom line.
Right.
Takes us to 5,680. 223.
That's what I've got.
Look how easy that was. Let's pick another set of line items to look at.
No.
Hey, Bill, how quick can you do your math and tell me, with that in reduction, what is our overall increase?
Well, 53,000 is a percentage, so that's almost exactly half right there of a percentage. So you're gonna be at about 6.2 and change, yeah. 6.25, 6.24, something like that.
So, you know, guys, really, you do that, and you get rid of the, you get rid of the health benefit increases. And the tuition increases that we really can't control, and, you know, we've got a budget that increased by, you know, a reasonable 2 or 3%.
Just, Bill, in the assessment of purchase services, that increase there, so we can explain that. I mean, are we getting more services purchased from the supervisory union? Is that the reason for that increase there, or is it,
No.
no? What is,
The same costs that are going up in your budget are going up in the special ed budget, the employees,
okay.
superintendent's
I
budget.
just didn't know if we had
employees.
movement from
No,
the
it's
building
a question for
There is shifts,
budget,
but-
you know, a shift from the building budget to the SU budget.
So we collapse those into total salary increases so that you guys could be able to speak with certainty about what were the actual salary increases for the people you employ.
Okay.
I think.
And that goes back to Laura's question about the 23.25, so that we can get clarification when you're talking with your
Mhm.
constituents about
Okay.
the number of FTEs that you either purchase or employ.
So, I have a question.
Well, Rick, are you good?
I'm just trying to figure out.
Well,
what
I'm
that
not
is,
saying
but
if you're good, but
I'm not good, but
you understand what
I
he's saying.
sort of understand what he says.
Okay, well, so what do we need to do to clarify it?
But where is this, what is this
The increase.
increase?
The changes in assessment and purchase services.
I mean, are we getting more purchase services? Is that what, I guess that was my question.
No, you are not.
I have a note that 77, the AST 77,000 was taken out of salaries.
And put
this,
into that.
moved into this.
That's the one I
That's
was
the
just
one you're
asking
talking
you
about.
about.
Okay. So that's a better answer.
Yeah, no, there was,
But it would have been 70, it would have been 97,000 up top.
right.
It's still 77,000.
Right,
In
there
the-
was,
in the
there was a
old-
It's gonna be
movement.
in one of the other
Yeah.
places.
Right,
You
instead
either
of us
purchased
having
it or
it
you
in
employed it.
salary.
Right.
And then we also, don't forget too, we've got the facilities manager that we are paying a little bit for. Half of it's being paid for by special ed because of the work with transportation, but some of it's gotta come out of the superintendent's budget. And, you know, and then there's just the normal increases. I mean, the superintendent's budget went up what was the increase on the
3.4.
3.4? But they're doing a lot more for us than they were because.
So when you say more services, Rick, I can answer that you do have now you are paying for, not out of reserves, out of the WCSU budget, a operations manager.
Okay.
So when you talk about more services, that's a clear
Increase.
example.
I'm just trying to figure out a way to explain. I mean, it's a big
Yeah.
increase. That's a 14%
Sure.
increase. That's,
But they're also doing more too, because now there's less, you know, more being done at central office. Like Dover and Marlboro used to do their own accounting, now it's being done at central office. And then there's the increase, you know, Essential Early Ed well, it's not Essential Early Ed anymore, what's it called? It's
ECSE.
yeah, there's a pretty good increase in there, because that funding's pretty much stayed level, but there's more and more students being identified or children being identified that we have to,
that's just there's fewer and fewer students.
yeah,
More and
but
more.
fewer
Staff.
students,
It's just-
but the
yeah, I know
number,
that we
the
have a
number
lot of
being
fixed costs. I
identified,
understand that.
but those fewer students, a bigger percentage of them are needing additional services that cost money.
So
and that would change over time,
Right.
depending on who the students are. So-
Right.
Oh, it won't. Sit
You
here
don't
for
have
a
to go
long
into that.
time. It won't.
Bill.
Oh, no, I'm just saying,
Oh.
the changes in assessment and purchase services, I think that I can go back with our team and see if we can flesh out some more constituent-friendly language to be able to talk about that.
Okay. Just playing devil's advocate.
No, no,
I
that's
mean,
great.
'cause somebody else will.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Okay, Laura.
Okay, so I actually don't know if this, is it our hope to approve a budget at our next meeting?
Wow.
You wanna do it in both towns?
We have,
Well, here-
we discussed it in Dover
Yeah,
once.
yeah,
Now we're discussing it in Wardsboro. I'd be happy if we approved it tonight.
okay.
Or we can wait and approve it at the next meeting, or we can actually wait till the first meeting in January, but that's really pushing it.
So, here's why I'm asking, because I would like, with as much specificity as possible, an answer to the question of, what would we cut? If we were
Reduce.
cutting, what would we reduce, how would we reduce $250,000? What would we do? And I feel like, I feel very fine putting one administrator on the spot with that question. It makes me a little nervous to put three on the spot with that question and not
So-
just get a general answer. I don't really
So
want
assign
a
it to
general
Bill.
answer. I'd like a
And then
specific,
Bill will decide
more
where it
specific
goes.
answer.
Okay. So
No.
for clarity, the board is asking me.
No, a board member is asking.
Okay.
We'll see where it goes.
Okay.
So I am asking if we could get, with some specificity, what would we cut?
What would we reduce if we told you to take $250
And I
out
don't
of the
mean,
budget?
you know, like this, I don't mean by specificity, I mean which categories would we recommend?
Like what you would actually reduce, like we would take out of that 250, 20 of it would come out of art, and 25 of it would come out of phys ed, and 30,000 would be a half teacher, whatever it is.
Unless you all feel like you could answer that question right on the dime.
I don't, I think your instinct was correct to just ask me.
And then he can assign it. But now the question is, are you good with understanding that?
I understand, I would just like to be clear that you are asking the superintendent to identify people that would be cut.
No, positions, we're not.
That
Nope,
positions that, I'm,
If that's what it
80%
is.
of our budget is positions, so I can tell you instinctively, of that 250,000, FTEs would definitely be a part of that.
So,
And I'm happy to do that work for the board. I just want to be clear that that is what you're asking me to do.
Okay, so is that the wish of the board?
Bill, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Looking at these FY21 numbers,
Yes.
health benefit increase might adjust a little bit if we reduce the FTEs, but in general, that's gonna be there. The assessment's gonna remain the same. Secondary tuition's gonna remain the same. Building operations is 62.5. Are
Oh,
you,
we just reduced it by
we just
29,000.
reduced that,
And
right.
we're already at 44.5.
So, are we
Right.
talking about, if we're looking at reducing 250,000, that coming out of that top category essentially completely?
I would say that 80% of it was gonna come out of that top category,
Okay.
just off the top of my head.
So let me clarify some stuff for the board. Superintendent's office's budgets are set, so those can't change. What can change is purchase services. So we can
Agency
decide
fund.
not to have as much band or
Yeah.
as much stuff that we purchase. Or the agency fund stuff can be changed. We can't really change tuitions because unless we are willing to go and recommend that we don't pay, that we only pay the statewide average tuition. And the difference between the statewide average tuition and the tuition we vote is about $3,000 times about 100 secondary students, Bill.
Yeah, it's $2,800 or whatever, and.
So 2,800 times 100.
We have,
There you go.
give or take, yeah, it could anywhere between 80 and 100 students, yeah.
So say it's 80 and just we'll round it to 3 just for quick math. You're doing $240,000.
That is correct.
But that's, the voters have voted that, and that's something we have to present to the voters, but we can make the recommendation that we don't do it. Other than that, I mean, we can't say we're gonna use less oil because we can't have people cold and we gotta heat the buildings. I mean, so it's a difficult thing to do.
I would like to be clear, I think the administrators have put forward a budget they think is reasonable and makes sense and is responsible, so I don't want to put that out as any kind of insinuation whatsoever. I think that is a question that we should be able to answer. And so, so the answer is, 80% of all of our budget is staff, and people, so then, okay, let's have, very legitimate question from a voter, so, then cut some staff. So then why is the staffing?
The budget can't be
Can't be
80%
80%
staff because it's 50%
No, of the 250.
secondary.
Of the 250.
Of the 250, so when I'm saying that,
Oh.
what's left, what is cuttable?
Cut.
80% of what is cuttable is staff, yes?
I'm just talking off the top of my head. So I just want to be clear that the suggestions that to respond to a board's request to give a $250,000 reduction, you would be receiving suggestions that would not be based on the board's wishes, but on one individual, your superintendent, making decisions in a vacuum of what is possible. So that could be very,
Okay,
that could be seen as very upsetting
Yep.
to the stakeholders of which those suggestions affect.
So I would say that, I'm hearing you. I think it would be very inappropriate for members sitting at this table to come in and say, start cutting and slicing programs and people.
Mhm.
And so if you are saying that request, like if we had that request from a taxpayer, that's largely gonna be people.
I'm
I
happy
would
to
like
do
to
the
understand
exercise.
what is the,
Impact.
Well, we
How would
just
we-
had an
what would-
answer, sorry.
okay.
We just had an answer to that question.
Yeah, what was
If
it?
somebody stood up and said, I'd like to cut $250,000 out of this budget.
Yep.
We could easily say, well, then we'll pay the statewide average for all high school students.
Oh, is
And
that what we
would
just?
answer that question.
No, that's one.
That is
using-
one-
That is one solution that
Right.
doesn't cut people.
I'm sorry, I think my head must have been going too quickly. For all tuition students?
Well,
It would be.
depends,
Yeah, because
because you
there's
have
roughly-
kids that go to public school that you have to pay.
No, we're cutting the additional, if we were to go to the statewide average,
You could only
Right
do
now-
students that go to the independent schools, not
Right,
students that go to.
right now, we
public
pay
schools.
around $2,800 above the statewide average.
Only for
How many?
students that
Okay.
attend a non-public
So how many is
independent
that?
school.
It's probably a third of our 80.
Without,
I can tell you,
Well, if say it's a third of the 80, third of the 90. Say it's 20 students. So there's so it's $60,000.
Wouldn't you have to pass an article?
60,000.
Would an article have to be passed in order for us to do that?
No, you
No,
have to
we
do. you
have to introduce an article every year.
Right.
To what we
So that would
want to
have
vote
pass in order
above.
for that to get out of the budget.
Right,
Yeah.
so that could be one of the recommendations is that you
What's
don't.
that?
it's about 35 students.
So 35 times 3 is about $100,000.
Okay,
give
so
or
it's,
So there's
Okay.
a big
Okay.
chunk of your,
so if I were to be asked to do this, I just
Yeah.
wanna be really, really, really clear that it's not the superintendent making recommendations to reduce staff, reduce programs.
I'm not asking-
And
yeah.
reduce, I understand,
Yeah.
but you understand that if I come back to you in a week
yeah,
and say, I did the task you asked for, and here is where that 250 can be found. It could be interpreted as the superintendent making a recommendation to
Yeah.
eliminate being a
So-
sending town or
Yep.
paying that amount of money,
Yep.
to reduce FTEs in the school.
okay.
So I just,
So may I ask another question?
Keep going.
So, is there a better way for the board to contemplate that question themselves that is not harmful to our students and our taxpayers?
well, again, I think you'd be diving into historically funded expectations for your taxpayers. And so that would appear to be, if you were gonna go down that road, that would seem to be a lot longer conversation than asking one person to do that. I will do that. I am your employee.
Would
I just
it-
wanna be clear that if I show up in 7 days with here's $248,000 in reductions,
Mhm.
and it's a reduction of personnel, and it's a reduction of opportunity to attend independent schools, with
no, it's not an opportunity.
with
10,
the
it's
with
just
the
less
current funding,
Yeah.
that I can be as upfront as possible about saying I was asked to do this, but I've done that before.
I know you have.
And,
It has
and-
not gone well.
Well, it's not gone well. It's just
Yeah. I shouldn't say it hasn't gone well.
the person that is sharing it is the person that becomes responsible for the recommendation.
Okay, well, I would like to, yeah, I hear that.
So let me just look at, if you guys, so this is a little harder to read than the old budgets, but go to page 4 of your budget. So line 185 on page 4 is total elementary. So they're recommending a $2,607,719 elementary budget.
Yeah.
Okay, remember, that's about the only budget we control.
Mhm.
If you go down the line 198, that's your secondary, total secondary, that's 2,587,000. There was a $127,000 increase there. There's nothing we can really do about that.
Except for the $100,000 extra that we're paying
right.
for kids that are going to private schools that we
Right,
didn't have to pay.
but then again, to remember, if every child chose to go, when we first argued this in Dover, if every child went to Twin Valley, then it was really only $100 difference between the extra we were paying because Twin Valley's tuition was so high, or there was one school that's tuition was high. You're still gonna pay, whatever public high school they wanna go to. So that doesn't always, it's always been that in the past, the statewide average tuition was always less than our 3 local high schools. That's why it seemed like an increase, because it was actually kind of
It's
like,
close. I don't think it's
Yeah.
always been, I don't think it's always been less.
no, it's always been less. At
In the
least
last-
as long as I've been on the board.
Last 4 or 5
Statewide
years,
is always
the
less.
statewide average is
Fairly
around
significantly less.
15,608,
Right.
and around us are 17,000, 17,400, 16,000.
Right.
Mhm.
And this is a little harder because then like the whole Board of Ed is on the backside on that, which it's supposed to be part of the elementary budget, but because of the new accounting. So if you really, if you look at that too, it's really unfair because the increase really on the elementary side is only $133,000. And it's not this bigger number, in front, because that's looking at a total of, 363. So there's 200,000 there, but then when you look at the increase on the secondary, that's 127,000 too. Which, when you think about it, it's really not that bad considering the additional tuition students, that we've been having. So it's, it is a little frustrating because we only really control half the budget, and again, just real round numbers. You're looking at 5.7 and 2.6 of it and 2.6 of it are your 2 different sections, which is really 5.2, and then I don't know where the other 500,000 comes in.
I have another question.
Oh, keep rocking
May
and
I?
rolling.
So, if we had said at the outset of budget development, keep it to 2%, would that feel less exposing?
I would have worked with our 2 administrators and
Yeah.
our business manager,
Okay.
and we would have brought you a budget that was at 2% and told you how it looked different from the prior year.
I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot.
No,
but,
I'm just saying, if
you
you're
know,
gonna put
town-
anybody on the spot, you gotta put me on the spot.
Yeah,
I don't think it
Understood.
is fair to ask.
I know.
Okay. I'm happy to do what the board would like me to do.
So I'm happy to be outvoted or supported, whatever the board's pleasure is, but I think somehow we should be prepared to answer that question.
I feel very comfortable I can answer that question to the public. I mean, there's the line items. Stand up, make a motion, and tell us where you want it to come from.
Which is what we would have said every year that I've been at town meeting with you.
Well, let's face it too, we have new programs over the last 2 years. We had to provide some sort of equity, and in doing that, it costs money.
Well, we've increased opportunities. There was never a STEM program for students to participate in. And no, it may not be in both buildings, but it's available to wherever you live. We just, and we've still got the IB program going strong. We still have school choice, which is something that a lot of towns that don't have it wish they did. So is it cost more to do that? Yeah, it does, and this is what it costs more. We still don't transport to every school that students attend to. I mean, it's, and I still don't think, pardon?
I said, don't get that going.
No,
Headache
I
already.
think, I do agree that we have a very good program. I would say we have a cheaper Cadillac program. It's not a Mercedes-Benz program, but it's definitely not the Yugo or, you know, whatever the cheap car is today.
It's so seldom that you like say new things like that I've never ever heard before. I think cheaper Cadillac is in that category.
Yeah. So I for one, I don't, so Laura wants Bill to do an exercise of telling us where he could save $250. Is that the wish of the board or not?
I can't support that.
I can't either.
I don't see the purpose in it.
Okay. So, Bill, don't worry about that.
Thank you
But
for the
I think, no, I think the
was a great
conversation
conversation.
helped answer it. And I think we're very, I mean, I would feel very comfortable saying, we had that discussion. If somebody in the audience on town meeting day says, you know, let's cut 250 out of this, you know, and that used to get brought up. Dick Holland in Dover every year would say, cut $100,000 out of the budget, and the board would just stand there and say, oh, it's gonna be very detrimental. But they would never give specifics. We've had that discussion, we talked about it.
Well, we know where we can cut 100,000.
Yeah, well,
Just
no,
need to get
Laura wants
everybody else
250.
to-
That was, you know, 25 years ago inflation. The 100's now at 250.
I'm just saying, we
Right.
know where we could propose $100,000 to
Right.
cut.
Or we know where we can propose 250.
And just remember, that's under the assumption that that everybody would continue to go to the same school that they would go to. That they wouldn't make a choice to go to a public school that would be an equal cost. We would assume.
Or greater
more.
cost.
Right, we would assume that everybody stays where they are and would pay the difference.
But they'll be voting on a budget, and the budget will contain a calculation for a finite number of students to go to a private school with the added unrequired amount that we pay for that tuition.
That vote usually comes later.
Yeah.
But what would happen is if whatever, because it doesn't matter really, because we don't know what the students are, so we're just giving our best guess. So that's not an exact number in the in the tuition for private schools. And then if
But it's not just pulled out of thin air.
no, but what I'm saying is, we've never hit that number exactly. We've always been on
Right.
one side of it or the other. And that's why we recommend we keep the fund balance, and we also will then, you know, when they vote, so we can pass the budget, assuming that number, if we get to the article about what do you wanna pay for secondary tuition, and that number gets voted lower or gets voted higher, it doesn't, you know, we'll have to absorb that like we always do, and we have to wait till the year's over to see how it came out, and then we either have to make up if we went over, or we have a little extra money that we raised that we didn't need that can go in the reserves if it was lower.
When do the schools announce their?
January 15th.
January 15th.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, you guys have a unique challenge because the largest percentage of kids go to Leland and Gray, and it's $100 difference between the sending rate to Burton, which is what was approved by the towns last year, and the largest public school that you send students to.
$100 less?
$100 less.
Leland Gray is 100 less. That's what I'm saying, some schools were higher when we voted that, and that was one of the arguments, was that, well, it's no different.
That's what I meant. Like,
Yeah.
we end up paying more than
Than
some of our public schools.
Yeah, but we pay $100.
But it's not, it's all dependent on what you're comparing it to.
Right,
Right.
to Leland
So
Gray, but
If Leland and Gray is 17.4 and Twin Valley is 16.5 and Brattleboro is 16,
Yeah.
then each one has a different spread.
so Brattleboro, if they all went to Brattleboro, we'd save a lot more money.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day,
Correct.
The pressures that our public schools are under and the pressure that our academy is under are quite different financially. And so, you know, I'm aware that statements have been made in the past that that's a desired effect, that students would not be turned down for, you know, not having to be paid that. That may not be the case anymore, but I think let's just be clear that the financial pressures are not quite the same.
For the school you're talking about?
Yes.
What about the families? The financial pressures are the same?
So one is being paid, no, they're not, I think, if you're
I
being
mean, the
paid.
pressures to pay for it is the same.
So in what case are parents paying for it?
If they
If they're
have to pay-
going to
if
Burton?
they're paying the difference, The
So
pressure is the same.
I would love to meet, you know, it's my understanding in the past that that would not have been required
What's that?
to pay the difference.
It has been required to pay the difference. I'm not sure.
Okay. Okay, well, then that is something that I'm uninformed of, but,
Oh, word vote.
No, what I
I'm not
think
sure I
there's,
understand.
schools, sometimes the academies have they have funding available to help families that can't make up the
Oh, I see.
tuition.
yeah. And, I mean, I've had parents say to me in the past, you know, that, you know, they've bargained down the extra cost
I
with the
bet.
academies and said, I have this much, would you like it, or would you like my student to go elsewhere?
Yeah. I've spoken to families who said they had to borrow money in order to go.
And there's all ends of the spectrum, so I'm gonna try to bring this back around because we've been now an hour on the budget, which is very appropriate. I mean, it's a big thing we do. I'm not saying anything wrong with it, but
It's decent.
so on the operational budget, are there any other questions on the operational budget?
No.
Thank you for all the work that you've put into this, all of you.
No, it's healthy conversation.
So as a board, are you ready to vote on the operational budget? If there are no yeah, we can vote on it.
I'll make a motion
What's
With the
your motion?
reduction, though, with the change.
that we approve to present to the voters a budget of $5,680,223.
And that's reducing the quilts, the window, and the
All of it.
water HVAC. The other,
Yep.
yeah, that other thing.
29,000 from line to 148.
Yeah. So the number, the new number, the budget number we would be presenting for operational is $5,680,223. Two little towns that used to improve budgets of $100. Oops, $5,680,223. Do you have that, Mr. Peter?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I have a motion. Do I have a second from somebody?
Second.
Okay, so Dwight seconds the motion.
I thought we made it.
No,
No, I did.
Oh,
Mark did. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Motion passes unanimously. So, Bill, you have a budget.
Thank you very much.
Administration, good job. You have
And
a
Laura,
budget.
thank you. That's a great conversation. I was trying to be clear.
I'm
Yes,
quite
sir.
good with the outcome.
You all set, boss?
Yeah, I
Hopefully
think we
it'll be
need to
that
have it
team.
on at the beginning in the future. What would a 2% increase look like?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Or,
That's
or
fine.
we need to give instruction. Next year, it's gonna be a lot better because we'll have, a full operating year under our belt. And we'll also know where our reserves are.
I also, I hate to send them out limited, because I think it's our job to hire qualified instructional, educational leaders. And I want them to bring us back, like their best budget. But I think we have to put the pressure on in terms of, if we're gonna get the pressure, what would we do? So you brought us your best budget. I mean, do we just go to the voters and say, Rich's answer of, there's the budget, tell us what you wanna cut?
So just be aware, you guys should have gotten copies of the letter from the tax department. Laura's smiling, she got it. And then the governor's executive assistant, and the commissioner of taxes, and then there's the education fund, December 1st, 2019, talking about its revenues. Everybody got those? Bill, I think, sent them out, right?
I did.
Yes.
Okay, really read those. If you read nothing else, read those because they're very important. Bill, next meeting, now we're gonna need the best guess at the reserves, because we're gonna have to figure out, are we gonna ask for any money to fund any of the reserves? Are we gonna fund the reserves with the money we have?
Okay, 1216.
Huh?
What does that mean?
Well, we have a certain amount of money. So we in Dover used to have a building reserve, a
Yeah.
vehicle reserve.
Yeah.
Wardsboro had a reserve. It all got put into a big
Oh, right.
pot. We
I see.
wanna know what that is and how we're gonna allocate it.
I see.
Because we wanted to
Got it.
say to the voters, there's X number of dollars, this is how we wanna allocate it.
Yeah.
And then we need to look at the, to to do the windows and the heat and the quilts, do we need to fund more money in the reserve, or how much do we fund in every year?
Yeah.
Okay. Pardon? Okay. Old business. Oh, so we're done with the big part of the budget, and Bill, we're gonna need the rest. And then come January, we'll have to start looking, we'll wanna start seeing the tax impact of what we just did.
Yep. So on the 15th, you're supposed to on the 15th get equalized pupils,
When did we get it last year?
February.
Or this year?
No, that is a big problem. Okay, so old business, I have equity, calendar for discussion, Bill got us. Oh, hang on 1 second, folks, I'm sorry, I missed something. Bucketville News, if we wanna get something in the Bucketville News
Today.
for next week, no, it's the 10th, tomorrow.
Oh.
We have to have it in by. And then that, you talked about that. So, we're actually done with that folder. And then we'll, principals report is later, old business. Okay, equity, calendar for discussion. Bill, you gave us a calendar for the equity discussion, and it's plan of action. So in February, Bill's, in January, we're preparing for equity discussion. Read the current definition of equity, which Bill's handed out, and think about how to create a local definition. Then we're gonna have the discussion, will start in February to create local equity definition documents, and then in March, we'll do some work on it to find, and then, March and April, we'll do that, and then I guess in June, no, that's it.
Yeah, I figured after after you finish the budget work, March and April would probably be your best time to actually lock something down.
Okay, and so we're gonna have, if we decide, we'll have our own definition of equity.
Correct.
And then you also have in June, we're gonna talk about the goals and measurements, principals report out.
Right, so you guys have a sheet of all
Yep.
the measures you guys talk about when, okay.
So we don't have to worry about it till January, but definitely read the equity thing, definition. The goals are something we talked about during our first, when we were starting to organize. Oh, do you have two definitions of equity or just one?
Oh,
Just one.
One's the goals.
One is the goals and one is the
Okay.
equity.
Well, I have two in my folder. Okay, everybody good with that? Any questions, thoughts, comments? Website design, I think we're just leaving that as a placeholder, right, for now?
Yes.
Okay, that's at a future meeting. Residency policy work, so Bill sent out an affidavit concerning pupil residency. Everybody get a chance to look at that?
So I included both of the existing policies, all right? And then I included the affidavit, which is referenced in the policy. And based on the board's feedback from the last review of our model from a neighboring district, I made a variety of changes to get it to a more manageable 4 pages. The fifth page is just signatures, and the sixth, the last page is a check sheet. But and if you don't have 2 guardians, you only have to fill out half. But it's a little more intense than you guys have had in the past. It has been very beneficial in your neighboring towns that have school choice, just to collect all this information when people are letting you know that they are residents of your district.
Have they found it saved them any money?
It has just provided a baseline for what it means to be a resident of a community that offers school choice. It hasn't, based on this alone, you are committing that you are a resident, but then you have information on which to verify if necessary. I can whittle it down more. It can stay as it is.
Okay, now it's time for truth or dare. You ready? Who actually read it before right now?
I did.
Okay.
I did not.
Although
Read it last time.
it was now 3 weeks ago, or
Right.
2 weeks ago.
Okay, so do we wanna move this discussion on to next week?
I mean, I can walk you through it real quick just to give you guys an idea of what kind of information we're collecting. I mean, imagine you're a parent that comes to the school.
Yeah, but I mean, I think our time might be better spent if people actually read it.
That would
and
be
then
fine, too.
we discuss it. If people are okay with that?
I would just say that I'm not recommending you change anything about your policies. Your policies are great. This is just the affidavit that is referenced in the policy.
Okay.
So I'll just leave that on next time's agenda.
Okay, so we'll look at that, because if we're not changing the policy, all we're gonna do then is,
You're not changing the policy. You're just giving feedback on the affidavit.
and that's more of an administrative function.
It is.
Okay, but we don't have a River Valley's policy, we have a Dover and a Wardsboro policy.
Correct.
So you
So-
have to put them together.
Well, the wording
the
is
same
exactly the
policy.
same.
Okay, so just make it and then we'll adopt it,
Okay. I can do
or
that.
we'll accept it to post it and then we'll adopt it next meeting.
Okay.
So please read that ahead of time, and then that way we can vote on that. To get it posted, and then we'll adopt it in Wardsboro. Okay, the only other thing we had under old business is transportation, and Mark, you wanted to talk about it, and I did actually remember that we were supposed to discuss it.
Just a quick update. Chris did reach out to Mark, what's his name?
Yeah, the
Headmaster.
headmaster.
The headmaster at Burton, and did not have his hand slapped away. So the headmaster is gonna come back to Chris with some possible options. So that's it. We're gonna wait till we have those in hand before we convene another committee meeting.
Makes sense. Okay, so you let everybody know on transportation knows.
They do now, yes.
Okay, cool. New business, principals reports. So I just want everybody to know that Tammy's famous again. She was on page 11 of this month's Bucketville News.
Is that a turnip? It is a turnip.
It's not me with the turnip.
No,
It's braided.
yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody, so if
Braden's
anybody
famous.
wants to see it, there it
He
is.
needs to give some
But
classes.
He didn't get the big one this year. Came
He
from out
did?
of state, no.
Yeah, they have a longer growing season in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Good.
And then we also got an IB update from Sue and Allison. It's a little over a page. So other than those two items, Tammy, you got anything?
I included the STEAM professional development that Wardsboro,
Yeah.
that Tammy's arranged for.
Yeah, I had that under you, I think.
So we will be collaborating with the youth instructor for 3 out of our 6 winter sports afternoons. She will come and work with the teachers, and they're going to learn about the engineering and design process.
Very cool.
And I was telling Rick earlier, I was watching TV at lunch today, and they have this company that you can buy kits for science projects. And some of them looked like so much fun, I wanted to actually send away for the kids. And it was kind of neat.
So they rent out kits as
There's
well.
some pretty cool ones.
You should come and volunteer.
No. But
You would love it.
I am gonna come in the spring though, when things slow down. So yeah, January 7th, 14th, and 28th. And that's open to other staff too, right, for other buildings if they,
Yeah.
well, I'm not even thinking from River Valleys, but I mean like if anybody in the West River District wanted to participate.
Good, sure.
Tammy's very good about it, letting her colleagues know at our leadership team meetings about things that are going on. Matt has been historically doing that through IB as well. It's been helpful.
So if any teacher doesn't want their kit, they can forward it to me.
There's no electricity
I get electrocute myself.
This has just got a
It's
small
not, it's not
battery.
ECT.
Tammy, anything else? Matt, you got anything, sir? Okay. You got anybody got any questions? Let's go to cabinet report. Bill had a long cabinet report.
I would just highlight that we had a very successful regional meeting with the superintendents and some special education directors with over 25 legislators. We had a very focused conversation about pre-K implementation, the continued pre-K implementation, Act 166. The preparations and deployment for Act 173, which is the changing of both the financial system for special education as well as acting upon structural instructional delivery systems as recommended by UVM and the district management group studies. It was very fruitful. Our goal, we're meeting on Friday, the regional superintendents, and we will be providing all the legislators with kind of the contact information for people that have high expertise, whether they're special education directors, curriculum directors, or superintendents, around those issues and categories of those issues, so that if a legislator who is not on those committees wanted to know what was going on in their local area about those, to have informed conversations with other committee members or with other colleagues, that they would have a easy way to email, text, or call somebody from their region, just as an educational resource. So this is our second time that we've done this, and we changed our format because of the feedback from the legislators this year, and I think it was very well received, and we'll continue to try to provide support for legislators who do not have staff. If we can provide any information or research for them, we want to be able to do that for them. So that's kind of the big highlight from that report.
Go ahead.
I'm noting the waiting study is in here.
So I was hoping that we'd have the waiting study by now.
Yeah, no.
The legislature was supposed to see it by December 1st. It was supposed to be public after that. I have not heard a thing, so.
I've heard that the consultant asked for some additional time.
Okay.
I've confirmed that with multiple people when I've called to ask where it is and if it's gonna be taken up this year.
So you guys haven't seen it yet?
No, it'll come out after the
No,
legislature
I
adjourns.
asked the chair of House Education specifically if she was intending to take it up, and she said, yeah, they definitely would be looking at it, so.
It will be, I went to the presentation just about the process, and the process was very thorough. I'll be very interested to see what the outcome is.
Yeah. I'm not, I will tell you, 60 seconds on the tangent. So already we are seeing the whole Beck mechanism coming back out, which is this mechanism that penalizes higher spending districts significantly. And when we have the weights some of us think are not correct, that could result in rural and poor districts being really viciously penalized. So I'm a little disheartened to see that big push. And it appears that it was somewhat coordinated, come out already with the tax commissioner's letter, knowing that we've invested all of these funds to look at our weights across the state to make sure that we have a system that is delivering equity, and I found that to be pretty disheartening, so got my eye on that. And I think we need to keep our eye on that.
Does that surprise you?
Does it surprise me? I don't know that it surprised me. I think it's fairly disappointing considering the amount of investment, both human and financial, that's gone into this study, which is a pretty big factor in the financing, so. There you have it.
Cool. Anything
I
else
read
for,
the rest of this.
anything else for Bill?
Thanks.
Okay, school events, I think, you guys got your dinners or something?
Thursday. Community feast, 12 o'clock.
It's not both schools going to the same place, is it?
No.
Both buildings?
Too big.
Yeah.
We need both gyms.
That's a good sign.
Yeah.
So join us.
Thank you.
Pick one
Town,
and then go to the other.
well, you didn't set it up that way, did you?
You gotta be at the beginning of one and the
At
end
the
of
end of the other.
Who's gonna have the best desserts?
Next year it'll be coordinated.
Yeah.
And now we're in between.
Town meeting warning prep. So you all should have gotten in your packet, according to Bill, you got a warning for the 2019 River Valley meeting, which we can just change to 2020 River Valley Unified School District. This year it'll be at the Dover Town Hall at 7 p.m. So Article 1, we always elect a moderator. We've been doing that for the floor, set the stipend. I think that can stay the same. The clerk can stay the same. A treasurer. So the first 3 articles, 4 articles, are, I think, pretty standard. Does anybody have any problems with any of them?
Is, are we talking about people at this point, or
What do you mean?
just wondering whether Andy?
No, it did, yeah, we just said articles, so we don't, somebody has to be nominated at the meeting, so. So anyways, we got the first 4 articles. Is everybody good with them? Okay, hearing
Fine with
nothing.
Fine
Just
with them.
well, Article 1, 2, 3, 4, we want to talk about Article 5. We got
Yeah,
the
no,
numbers in there.
1 through 4, if we just change the dates,
Yep.
Yeah,
yeah,
so
I think we're fine.
just so you all know, since Mark resigned as auditor, we actually have somebody from Dover and somebody from Wardsboro interested. So, Bill found out what the auditors need to do. Tammy is speaking to a person from, Wardsboro is interested. Matt has somebody from Dover who's interested. So we answered some questions and they're gonna talk to them, and then I asked them to send a letter to us and we can maybe appoint somebody at the next meeting. We may even have to choose somebody.
Wow.
You're gonna give them a big, huge list of duties, right?
So Article 5, so the voters of the River Valley Unified School District set the annual stipend for school directors at blank and for the chair at blank, and I think we're at
2,000 and 2,500.
Right, the second, I gave you the copy of,
what we actually
so-
did,
yeah.
right, but what do we wanna set it at? Do you wanna do the same?
Fine where we are.
Okay.
Unless anybody has an issue with that.
Okay.
that is what has been budgeted.
So, Article 6, annual tuition rate to approved independent schools at blank for the 2020-2021 school year. Do we have the Burton tuition yet?
Not yet, January 15th. They usually try to get it early to us. I expect it to be 17.8, 50, 17.9, something around there. It'll usually less than 3%.
So, the question is, Laura,
Yeah.
what do you wanna put in that number? Do you wanna put the Burton number in there, or do you wanna put a different number in there?
How many people do you want to show up to the meeting?
A lot.
Then don't put the Burton number in. You're gonna get a lot of people.
Get a tactical person, I see. I need that to be noted, that was I'm happy to put in what we've done in the past. I mean, that's whatever we're putting in the budget.
So what we told in Dover, the voters, was that you petition it the first time. Once you petition it,
Yeah.
we'll always put it in there at the Burton number. But now it's no longer the Dover, it's the River Valleys. I don't know, did Wardsboro ever have something set up with its voters, or?
No, I think we kind of determined that it was part of the budgeting, if I remember correctly, you know.
Okay. I mean, we're required to have this article, so if anybody asks why is it in there, we already settled this. because we're required to do it every year, because it says annually, the electorate shall set the rate to be paid. So we'll just put the Burton number in as soon as we know it. Everybody good with that?
Works for me.
Okay. So the voters approve mileage for the reimbursement, which is a pretty standard article. Everybody good with that?
Are we missing the big article?
Yeah, because they were voted on by ballot before.
Okay.
That's why we haven't done it.
Right. Couple of them.
Okay, so we had money to offset the reserve, money from the reserve to offset the tax rate. Was Article 8. So I'd like to make an Article 9, which is to authorize the transfer of any surplus, if any, to the general reserve fund. And that way, if we vote on it, we don't know what the number is. If there is any surplus, it automatically goes in the reserve fund, and we don't have to worry about it being in limbo for a year. And it gives us true numbers to work with the following year. And that's something we've done in Dover since the advent of Act 60. So if nobody has a problem with that, I'd like to add that as Article 9.
Good.
Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Article 9 comes out, and Article 10 comes out. So Article 11 would be Article 10.
What are you looking at, Richard?
Yeah, because we only go up to 7.
9 and 10 are gone.
You're
On the
looking at
back
something
page.
else. No.
We didn't get those.
Okay. Well, last year, Article 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 were voted on at town meeting. Or Article 9 through 12
Australian ballot.
were voted by Australian ballot. Okay, so here, this is what I'm looking
Did you
at.
say 9 through 12?
Yeah,
Here, I've got an extra.
I get an extra one too.
I got it electronically. These answers out.
I got an extra. And then it-
Okay,
Yeah,
so
we're good.
Article 9 gets stricken because we already took care of that. And Article 10, we don't need. Article 11, shall the voters of the River Valley School District, School Board to expend, and instead of 5.3, it's 5,000,000.
6802.
2, 3.
That's the big number.
And we don't know what that last equalized people
Right.
number is. And then 12, you guys are gonna do that at your local.
10, right, so Article 11, well, this one will be noted that it'll be done at the town meeting.
Well, which one?
So do people, who's up in Wardsboro, is it you, Rick?
No, I
It's, Barry.
Barry, okay.
still have a very long time.
And then,
He says.
Yeah, yeah.
and are you,
Newly
who's
elected.
up in Dover?
Mark?
I am, but
Mark, okay.
was Carrie? Well, I know I have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you
I- I
were.
Then that's.
I don't
No.
remember if it
Yeah,
was.
Carrie runs out
was
at
the one.
2020.
Okay.
Okay.
And that I have to get petition for. We vote.
You
Australian
vote by
ballot.
Australian ballot.
Okay.
You go see the town clerk.
And then I think, we had an Article 13 that was kind of any other business, but I think we should have an article, because it's the next one in line, Article 12. I think it should be to set reserve accounts, to let the people know what we're putting in for the reserves, and then to vote an amount to set and vote
Fund the reserves.
amounts to fund reserve accounts.
Right.
Make sense?
Article 11. Or you're gonna keep.
Article 11 will be
You're gonna keep that one?
to the vote, because that, I think, has to be in there.
It became Article 10.
Article 12 is now Article 11.
The budget.
Okay,
The budget
so
became.
Article 8 was the Article 8, okay,
Yeah.
to move
And
money.
you added Article 9,
Right,
and you got rid of the old Article 9, the old Article 10.
right.
So Article 11.
Became Article 10,
Yeah, and then you got rid of Article 12.
which became Article 11.
So then.
No, I didn't get rid
11
of it, it's Article 11.
Oh, you-
Directors.
But those are gonna be done at.
It doesn't
town
matter. I think we warn it
meeting. Oh, okay.
in there, even though you're voting it, we let people know. And there'll be a notation, Article 11 will be voted by Australian ballot at town meeting in Dover and from the floor at town meeting in Wardsboro.
And you'll work with our clerk to.
Right, to make sure he's good with that.
Okay.
Both clerks.
Yeah. But the district clerk. To,
Right.
For the, okay.
And then Article 12 will be to vote to establish and fund the reserve funds,
Okay.
the reserve accounts. And then next week we'll work on, how much money that we're gonna recommend go in each one and if we're gonna raise any money for them.
What's that?
And then Article 13, I think will just be any other business.
Well, no, 13, you're gonna want to have the capital.
No, I have that under Article 12, reserve funds.
You're creating the reserve fund. What about moving money?
That's it,
Oh,
to
you're
create and fund the reserve funds,
Okay.
reserve accounts. To vote to
Okay.
establish and fund the reserve accounts.
But not to expend money from the
Yes.
reserve accounts?
No, we no,
Right?
I'm sorry, yeah, Article 13
Right.
will be reserve expenditures.
Right. Because we just have that.
So technically, I
You don't have to, but
right, but we've always done it. Rick, did you, with your reserve expenditures, did you get approval from voters, or did you just?
No, just move
We
it.
got last year. We got approval to move up to a certain amount.
No, not.
Not for-
So, if you had money in the reserve account, you wanted to use it to buy, you had a building reserve and you wanted to do something in the building, did you get approval for it, or did you just, there's a ruling from the Secretary of State that once a reserve fund is established, the board controlling the reserve fund can expend money without voter approval, because the voters approved you to spend the money.
Right.
But we've always liked to say, here's what we're gonna spend the money on this year. And I like to keep doing that. I think Bill's got,
well, that's
What we've
that's in front of the board.
Does that limit you in any way?
yeah, because then.
I mean, does it limit you?
Well, like if you're gonna remember that 29,000 we took out?
Right.
Would you ask the voters, can we spend $15,000 on the ERV, $10,000 on windows, $1,000 on a water faucet, and $3,000 on quilts?
No.
Yeah, and it would be more, we wanna expend X number of dollars to do the
Correct.
Yeah. No, we didn't do that.
You would just do it.
Yeah, we had the authority to do it. We just did it.
Okay.
Yes.
I would prefer to let the voters just know what we're doing, give them the chance to approve it.
Yeah.
Good, you're right, you're expending money from already previously approved funds,
Right.
so you guys have the authority to do it. But in your second year as a board, you have to decide if you wanna be overly transparent so that people understand what you're doing with those accounts. Cause you're gonna set up the accounts in the article prior.
Yeah, I don't have a problem saying what we're gonna
With it.
spend it on. It's just
Okay.
what happens if your septic fails?
Yeah, the thing is.
Well, then we would fix the septic and expend the money.
This is just planned expenses.
It doesn't
Planned
stop you from using it
Right,
by doing it. You're
It just adds another level of being transparent.
right.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay,
So that's 13.
Excuse me, what's Article 11 actually?
to choose the district officers.
Okay. Thank you.
So then Article 13 becomes other business.
14.
14, I'm sorry. Other business, and then we adjourn.
And then 15 is the
Yeah, and I don't know if we have to do that.
that is unique
Right.
to you guys.
Wait, what's Article 13?
Kinda like that.
Article 13,
To expend capital.
How to expend capital, and 14 was other.
and in the number we're gonna expend is the 29.
29.
Even?
Yep.
What about the 50,000?
That was
No, that was
just,
funding.
that's just funding a reserve account.
That's the article above.
Article 11? That was 10.
Okay, you ready, Peter? Article 9,
Got that one.
okay, then Article 10
Okay.
is the vote on the budget, the operational budget.
Okay, good.
Article 11 is to choose officers, that'll be done at town meeting in both towns from the floor in Wardsboro and by Australian ballot in Dover.
Got that?
Article 12 is to vote to establish and fund the reserve accounts.
Yep.
That's not exactly how it's gonna be worded, but that's
Right.
for now.
Yeah.
Article 13 is gonna be reserve account expenditures.
29,000.
Yep,
14's any other business.
yep.
Got it. Thank you.
Everybody okay with that? Okay, so we'll work that up for next week too.
I have one question.
Yes.
Article 6.
Yes.
Okay? Do you want that before or after you have the big number voted on?
We used to always do it ahead of time, and
I
the
guess I'm
reason
saying
being,
is you can't go backwards.
Right.
If somebody brings up the big number being wrong. So
right.
you've already voted in that. So
Yep.
it just takes that off. the
Or
table. Are we okay
if
with
it
that?
gets, if something gets changed in that, then we
People can pass over
we
it.
can amend the, we can adjust the operational budget.
Right, because you guys are live.
Right.
It's not Australian ballot.
So let's say,
But you've already said you're gonna spend this amount of money. Now you
No, we
can't
haven't.
change that.
But
Yes, you
it
have.
could be a different amount than
No,
what we put in
we-
there.
Article 6 is to vote how much we're gonna spend. Which the
On
budget.
secondary students,
Right,
secondary
which-
schools,
No, on just the private secondary schools.
private secondary schools.
On tuition, not on the schools itself, on the tuition,
Mhm.
right? So we give them numbers. So let's say if it passes, then it's fine. If they vote it down or vote another number, then we can make an adjustment to the big budget. When we get to Article 10, we can say, because you changed your vote on Article 6, we can reduce the total budget by, you know.
We have 35 students that are attending independent schools, so we're gonna reduce it, but we don't know that those kids are gonna go to those schools because it is March and they will go to those schools in August, and they might make a different choice based on,
Or they
Probably
may-
leave the
but
But
budget
you've,
as-
they
you've
may
already
leave the
said though that
district.
you're gonna pay up to that amount of money.
if that
You've
article
al-
passes.
If that article passes.
We budgeted for that.
You've budgeted for that.
Yes.
So if the big article, if they can't go back and change.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is it
Right,
makes
but-
that, the whole conversation we had that lasted for 30 minutes
Right.
is moot if this point is before the big number.
I don't know.
No,
It is.
somebody
No,
can make, somebody
he's
can
right.
make an-
Because we've already set that number. But remember too, voters don't have they have bottom line. They can't vote a line item.
Except for this one, basically.
This one they
No,
can. though.
this
You're
one they
s-
can't
you're-
vote a line. They can't, while you're discussing the budget, vote a line item. They can adjust your bottom line. It's still up to the board to
So-
decide how the adjustment happens.
No, because the voters have said that you're going to spend whatever that amount is on private
Right, we would
secondary
have to do that, but it's our, so if somebody stands
So
up
you're
and
gonna-
says,
you're gonna hit the
here's a
elementary
great
school
example.
100,000.
for
I wanna
100,000.
cut $100,000 out of the budget and I want you to take it out of the principal's salaries. Well, you can't make that motion anyways, you can only, the moderator should tell them that you can only adjust the bottom line, so then they would say, okay,
You can't make Matt pay.
I make a motion that we fund the school at $5,580,223. Where that 100,000 comes from is the board's decision at a later date.
So,
Except for on that
Except
article.
for on that article, because
No,
you've
That
already
article
committed
is
to
only
that
how
amount.
much we're paying per student. Nowhere do they vote that. They don't vote, when they're voting the budget, they don't vote how much you're paying
yeah.
per student. They're voting a number, a bottom line number. That's what they vote on in the budget.
So if they
Not voted.
turn this down,
I'm just
And they
asking if
vote
it
this-
can just be moved.
Yeah, if they
to
vote
below
that
big
number down,
yeah, and they say, no, we're only doing the statewide average, that will have a budget implication.
right,
Right.
we can adjust the budget
before the
Right.
vote.
before the vote.
I think that is what, exactly Rick's point.
You guys are saying the same thing. What Rick
Yeah.
is saying is,
Do it after.
once that is approved, you wouldn't change the big budget.
Right, so you have to have
But
the
if
But we
that
could
isn't
still change the
approved,
big budget.
then you would have to change
could,
the
but
big,
then
but
we're
we've already
making it
published that
cheaper.
and.
You don't, I mean, you don't have to change it. It doesn't necessarily.
Right,
need to
and
change.
even if that article got voted down and it was just a statewide average, you may not wanna change it anyways,
wouldn't
cause
change
you
the
don't know what
budget
those
anyhow.
students are gonna do.
We don't know what's gonna happen.
Right, because you don't know where they're gonna attend.
Right, and
We
the
don't
other
know how many
schools are
kids, so
fairly
it's-
close, so.
The idea would be some savings in that line item, but you don't need to change the budget.
Right, 'cause
So yes, Rick, if somebody says if somebody says,
I'm saying that you're committed to that $17,000 once that passes.
right, you are.
Okay, that's all I'm saying. So
Right.
if somebody says, well, we wanna pay the statewide average, you're gonna take that money out of the elementary school. And I
That
just wanna
should-
make sure
right.
that everybody's okay with
Well,
that.
that can be brought up during the discussion about that article.
But Article 6.
Right, while you're discussing Article 6, somebody can say,
And my whole point was just, if we move it to below when we count, after we vote on the budget number, just move where it is. I think it's safer. But I'm only one person.
well, I
For me,
don't
for me, I don't mind
really,
budget changes
I don't
either way.
think it matters and I don't care, so I'm willing to move it. I'll go with you on that one.
Okay.
So there's two, convince somebody else.
I'm fine with it. I don't think it matters.
It's just the point of
Mm-hmm.
where it shows up.
So you wanna do it right after that vote?
Sure.
Okay, I'm okay with that. You okay
I'm
with
fine
that?
with that too.
Okay,
Okay with
so
that?
we'll fix that, Peter, don't worry about
The,
it.
the only problem with that is, not that it would happen, but if somebody amended what is now Article 6 to a higher number,
Mm-hmm.
There'd be no reason, I don't think you'd ever see a higher number there.
I don't either, but then you can't go back and change the overall budget.
You just run a
Well,
deficit.
again, you're stuck pulling it out of the elementary school.
Exactly.
I just feel like the elementary schools get,
Yeah. It's the only place to go.
any shortfalls come out of the elementary school budget. And it's really the only one we control.
Okay, so just so we know, just so we're going through, let's run through it one more time. Article 1, 2, 3, and 4 is the moderator, clerk, treasurer, auditor. Article 5 is how much we're gonna pay the board. Article 6 is the approved mileage. Article 7 is withdraw money from the reserve fund. Article 8 shall be the authorize a transfer of the surplus, if any, to the general reserve fund. Article 9 will be the budget of $5,680,223. Article 10 will be the amount we pay for the annual tuition rate to approved independent schools. Article 11, which will be voted on at town meeting, are the school district officers. Article 12 is to vote to establish and fund the reserve accounts. Article 13 is to reserve expenditures of $29,000, and Article next one is the any other business. Let's do this. We're gonna move also to elect the officers to the last thing just before adjournment. So it
The
would
one
be
that's happening at town meeting.
Because
Right.
we're not electing them.
right. We're not
It's
electing
just
them
a
there, and who
point.
cares when they're elected? I mean, we could make it the first article too, and just say Article 1 will
Just
be.
have it separated.
Yeah. So if everybody's good with that, then I'll work with Bill and get a clean copy of this out. And
Thank you.
Rick, would you or Dwight have a chance to just have your town clerk look at it and make sure there's no issue she has when we get the new one out to
Sure.
you?
Sure.
And I'll get it over to Andy, and then we'll have it for next Monday night.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Is everybody good with that?
Yeah, but the last time we went through it, all those first articles were screwed up in my list, so let me see your notes later, okay?
Okay.
You got good ones.
No, mine were good.
They were.
Is everybody okay? We're actually, guys,
I
right
think
on
we're
schedule,
great.
believe it or not.
That is staggering.
So, unless anybody else has any new business, we have contractual and a parental concern for executive session, but before we do that, we will be making a decision, or we need to make a decision on at least one of the executive session items. But December 16th at 6:30 in Dover, it won't be possible budget approval, it'll be possible meeting warning approval. And then January 6th will be in Wardsboro, and that's when we have to have all our final town meeting stuff together, or school district meeting. And Bill, can we invite Anita to the next meeting then? Because we're gonna have to now come up with whatever we're gonna send out to the voters. So you guys all need to think about what we wanna send to the voters. Like, do we wanna do the booklet like we did last year? And what do we wanna have in it?
I think it's really important that we just make people aware that they're coming to a meeting this time too.
And they have to vote at the meeting on the budget, right? And then the other thing is, we'll have to set up, we've only got, we're required to, within 10 days before the meeting, to have an informational meeting on the budget. And we have to do that in Wardsboro, because we do in the town opposite where we're meeting. And then, so the other meeting in January, we should be prepared to review the budget with people too. So if we're gonna have to really look at the meeting dates next, so everybody bring your calendars too, because January is gonna be a tough month. We're gonna have to fit like 3 or 4 meetings in that month. And then Laura's gotta go to Montpelier and drink Kool-Aid.
All the cameras.
Do they
facing
flavor
here.
the Kool-Aid? Is it cherry?
Look, Matt's saying something.
Look, that's insane.
Is your battery dead yet? If everybody's, so those are the next meetings, if those that don't wanna stay. Do we want the administrators on the parental issue?
At the minimum, yeah, I think it would be very beneficial to have both, yes.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion to move into executive session for the purpose of parental concern and for a contractual issue, contractual review.
So moved.
Second.
Oh,
Unmoved.
yeah, all that. Just real quick, I had this under financials. So last meeting, we should have signed financials, but we didn't have a meeting. So I don't have rulers, I'm not as fancy as our business manager. So I approved the financials. Bill brought them over to Dover. So, Bill, you had a couple things you were gonna.
Couple clarifications. On 1266 and 1289, you'll notice on 1266, you're making a tuition payment to Leland and Gray, and you might ask yourselves, why are we making a tuition payment to Leland and Gray when Leland and Gray is part of a school district? You should be making the payment to West River Education District. And then you'll see 1289, you are making a payment to West River Education District. So that Leland and Gray PO was done prior.
Okay,
And so if you add 1266 and 1289, that is your semi-annual tuition payment to West River Education District at Leland and Gray. In the future, you will just see one.
okay.
That will be to West River Education District. And then Matt, 1253, the coolant leak.
Yeah, so normally those would be, well, we did contact the town garage guys who normally look at a bus, there's a problem. And they felt they weren't able to address that issue, so that had to be, we had to have another mechanic work on the bus to fix a coolant leak. Blown hose.
And if I remember correctly, wasn't that like a Friday afternoon so that the bus could run on Monday morning?
It was, and it was late in the day, so the road crew guys were gone.
But our normal process is to,
Right, normally, and we did that in this case, Travis did have a look at it, and we felt like it was out of the scope.
and then 1273 is a purchase from Perkins. And I believe we're still investigating why they charged us for shipping, or if that was a shipping cost or a late payment.
Looked into it a little today, and it was a special order part as part of a bathroom stall piece that shipping from the manufacturer was required.
Okay, thank you.
I'm happy. Anybody else got any, if you get any questions, we can ask Bill, but those were the kind of things I just jumped out at me.
Thank you, man.
So, we're not doing invoices with these.
They had them, but the whole packet was there, but they needed, because of the
December
insurance stuff,
2nd.
we had to
Yeah.
pay it.
Yeah,
So I'm allowed, myself or Barry or both of us can approve it. So Bill was coming over, so I asked him to bring them over. He
Okay.
dropped them at my office. I
Yep.
went over them that night. I
Okay.
went through them, and then I asked some questions the next morning, gave them back to him,
Okay.
so that the insurance stuff could be paid. Normally, we will look at them at the first meeting of the month.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We weren't here. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so back to the motion that was on the floor for, to go in executive session for contractual and parental concern. I have a motion and a second. Peter, who seconded it?
Mr. Thorpe?
Mr. Thorpe. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're in executive session. You guys can stay. We will go down the hallway. The one item we're gonna make a decision on